Hello, I'm Shilpa Mehta and this is Extraordinary Ancestors, the show where we uncover the amazing family histories of people from all over Britain. This week we're in Cardiff. It can be fascinating to discover that characteristics that you thought were your own turn out to be something that you've probably inherited. That's what Community Projects Manager Keith Morrell here found out when we took him on a journey in the footsteps of his extraordinary ancestor. Keith Morrell was born in Cardiff and has grandparents from the Philippines and the Caribbean, but we were going to tell him about the white side of his family. We took him over the border to England, to the Royal Forest of Dean, to find out more about his great-great-grandfather, George Sleeman. So I suppose you're wondering what your great-great-grandfather did for a living?
Yeah, I'm wondering what he's walked all this way into the woods for, yeah, definitely.
Have you got any clues, Keith?
No, I walked past a pile of lumber, so maybe it was something to do with well, he's doing something in the forest. I can't even imagine what he'd need to do in the middle of the forest that he couldn't have done at the edge of the forest.
Well, funnily enough, he was actually doing it underneath the forest.
All right.
Because he was a miner.
Okay.
We went to meet Robin Morgan, who took us to one of the few remaining working mines to get a sense of George's life.
Isn't this lovely, this entrance with this tree and this little secret tunnel?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's got the living forest on top of the dead forest in the coal mine, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this mine was driven in 1821.
All right.
Which is the year of George's birth, so
Yeah.
he would have worked in a mine exactly like this.
Yeah.
Right, now if we all put our lamps on now,
Am I on?
just a bit more, that's it, too far, that's it. There you go. Right,
Oh, we're wired for light.
Well, actually, Keith, this is how your great-grandfather would have had to have worked. Only instead of cutting the coal with a coal cutting machine like I do today, you would be using a pick just like this and cutting it out by hand. As you can see, this coal is very, very hard.
Keith's ancestor would have spent 6 days a week down the mine, but what had Keith made of his brief taste of life underground?
Surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Previously, I'd always thought that the life of a coal miner was something like a sentence. Although I was in good company. Robin mentioned that when people worked together, they worked, it was more than just a working relationship. It was a lifelong partnership in some ways. And I could see you'd need that.
Did it make you feel for your great-great-grandfather?
When I was actually shoveling the coal and got dirty and got my hands in it, I associated with work that I'd done in the past and with work that my father had done in the past. So in some ways, it helped me identify with him, and he was a part of my ancestry that I hadn't even considered before.
George Sleeman and the miners of the Royal Forest of Dean were unusual. They were known as free miners, a title unique to the forest. We went to meet Maurice Bent, a local historian and a free miner himself.
You have to be born there, and you have to work a year and a day in a mine.
So what kind of privileges were attached to the title of free miner?
Well then, a free miner can have an area of coal called a gale. He applies to the deputy gaveler, and he can work that area of coal as a privilege handed down from the 14th century.
It's like they were freelance miners, so they could just go and apply for their gale and then dig their own coal.
That's right, yes.
And in fact, we searched the records of the Forestry Commission and we found out that George applied for a gale, which is an area of coal, right here.
Right.
So it's likely that he was mining underneath our very feet, Keith.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you found the entrances to that?
No, I think it might have closed up now. Is that right,
Very
Maurice?
likely, yes, they would have filled it in.
But, yeah. So this is my country then?
It is.
It's a very moving time for him, isn't it?
Mm.
To come and trace his ancestors back here, so the Royal Forest of Dean.
When he was 31, George married Hannah. They had 8 children together. Well, now, this is typical of a miner's cottage in the Royal Forest of Dean. And George and his family would have spent a lot of time in the kitchen area, like here, with the whole family, you know, hanging out and being warm. Now, in fact, we've got your family tree here, so we can be really crystal clear about what's going on. So there is George Sleeman.
I knew somebody came from England at some point, and this is as English as it gets.
So what are the connections that you're making between your father and your great-great-grandfather and you?
Realising the level of pride that people like George would have had in their work. I know he must have worked hard for what he had, and his chance that he still didn't have a lot. He hadn't worked hard, and that reminds me of my father, and that reminds me of me, probably. I mean, freedom, for some people it's a word on a t-shirt. Speaking to Robin yesterday, one of the things that I was taken by was like his enthusiasm and passion for it. And you can see how they've actually embraced, you know, for them, what it really means, that the fact that they've got that word free in their title.
Follow me to here. But there was more to life than work. Foresters loved music, and we had a surprise for Keith. Your great-great-grandfather George, who was in a brass band himself, because the miners at that time loved music, and this was, you know, the way they let off steam after a hard week down the pit.
Well, I would have been if I lived here, because I love music too, and just to hear real music made by real people is, it's really nice.
What sense of continuity do you get running from George through your father through to you?
From what I can understand, a certain amount of independence that's sometimes seen as arrogance or stubbornness. Maybe a strong sense of natural justice, and also, I guess, a sense of purpose and a sense that of creating your own destiny.
Now, Wales is just a short hop over there, Keith. Do you think you're ever going to hop over here and visit the Forest of Dean again?
Who couldn't walk through somewhere like this and think, oh, I want to come back here again? It's somewhere 80 miles away from where I live. So yes, I'll be coming back for the Sleemans and the forest.
Anthony, how did you manage to find out so much about George Sleeman, even though he led a relatively simple life tucked away in the Forest of Dean?
Well, George was an obscure man, but he does appear in a lot of the records which we genealogists use to trace family trees, like parish registers and censuses. But he was also in those fantastic records of the Forestry Commission, and it was those that enabled us to put flesh onto the bare bones of your family tree.
Keith, what did you think was the most remarkable bit of the journey for you?
Well, there was a sense of connection with the country, with Britain, because for a long time, even though I was born here and my parents were born here, I felt like a stranger in this country. Like I feel like I'm part of something else, which I still am. But it was really good to connect.
Yeah, and you were in contact with the forest, and, and that really spoke volumes to you, didn't it?
It really did. Yeah, I felt like it was mine. And everyone else's, but like it certainly felt like it was mine. Yeah.